We have a hot worker union summer, baby. It's getting hot in here, and it's mostly because the radiator's on, and I don't know how to turn it off.
But
also because the United Auto Workers is expanding the strike on all of the big three. Well, actually, that's not true. Hold on, it's not true. I just lied. The UAW is expanding the strikes against General Motors and Stellantis, but not against Ford. Not against Ford. Now, all 38 part distribution centers across 20 states at General Motors and Stellantis have now joined the strike. This is a change in strategy. The United Auto Workers is no longer going after car production. They are going after car part production. Why is this important? Car part production is very important for the dealerships of GM and Stellantis because dealerships make the most amount of money on repairs to vehicles, not by selling vehicles, but repairing sold vehicles. They will not be able to repair any of the vehicles if they don't have the parts. And because our economy works on a produced as need basis, they don't have a stockpile of parts ready to go. The second a part gets produced at one of these auto plants, it gets sent to the dealer to do the repair. They don't have a backlog of this stuff. So this is going to hit people's wallets immediately. And it's a risky move because now we're going to be exposing the consumer to the effects of the strike. If you have a GM car or you have a Stellantis car and you go to your dealership to get a repair, you will probably have to wait a little bit. You'll have to wait a while because they're not going to have the stuff. And this puts pressure on, obviously, the dealerships because they're profits. This puts pressure on the car manufacturers, GM and Stellantis, because consumers might not think they're a reliable partner to buy from. But it also puts pressure on the union. It could get people angry at the union for causing their car to not be able to get fixed on time. I hope people can see past that.
I suppose, but does the union really have to answer to the people?
No.
I think they're fine. I think the pressure is almost entirely going to be felt by the companies and the dealerships because they're the ones who are going to stop seeing their revenue come in because they literally can't provide the services and the products to these people.
Exactly. And listen, we talked about strike funds. United Auto Workers has an $800 million strike fund.
Yeah, they're chilling.
They're chilling. All right. Sean Fain knows what he's doing. This strike has been years in the making, right? I mean, this has been years in the making. So why are they not going after Ford? Well, Ford has come to the table and have been an okay partner with the United Auto Workers. Ford has said that they are willing to strip away a lot of tiers from their employer program. So one of the things that the United Auto Workers are fighting for, if you remember from last week, is they have different tiers of employment. And each tier of employment comes with different benefits. And the United Auto Workers wants to get rid of all that so all employees earn the same benefits because it encourages the car manufacturers to keep hiring in more people at the bottom end of the tiers, reduce promotions, and not keep people on for very long, right? So with that, they're not really angry at Ford right now. Ford has done some other stuff. I think they're shutting down an EV battery plant in one state that the United Auto Workers is not happy that they're doing. But for this reason, they're only going after GM Stellantis with this strike so far.
I really like this strategy from UAW because it shows GM and Stellantis exactly what they have to do to get the workers back.
They are giving them an off-ramp.
Yep.
And that's one of the best things about like a good faith negotiation. Both parties will always have an off ramp. They'll always be able to tell you, okay, if you do this, I'll stop doing this. If I do this for you, that means that I want this in return, right? They always have that agreement. And this is showing that the United Auto Workers are a reliable partner in negotiations. They're not totally against capital. They're willing to work with capital, right?
Yeah.
That's what trade unions are. They're willing to work with capital in this case.
Yeah, which is also, I think it can be counterintuitive because you do hear these scathing statements that say Sean Fain makes against millionaires and billionaires and the executives who have enriched themselves at the cost of their workers. But at the end of the day, it's all negotiating strategy, right? And all he wants is to use those strategies to help the members of his union.
Yeah, I mean, what is he trying to do? He's not trying to collectivize Ford and GM.
No.
He's not trying to take them over and have the workers kick the CEOs out of the boardroom. He's trying to say, listen, I know you make 350 times what we make. Can we maybe make it 300?
Yeah.
That's all. That's what he's asking for.
Or even 35 could be okay.
Yeah, maybe it could be 5. But he's not crazy like us. He's just it's not that serious that you go on CNBC, and you got guys. Who's the famous guy on CNBC who's always wrong all the time?
Oh,
Jim Cramer.
Yeah.
Jim Cramer goes out there and he's like, these auto companies, they ought to teach these guys a lesson. Let's fire all of them and ship all their jobs over to Mexico. He says that on live TV. What an asshole. What an absolute asshole Jim Cramer is to say something like that. And you're an American citizen. You want America to be competitive on the international stage, and your first response to workers not getting paid a fair wage is, fuck them, go to Mexico? Get the fuck out of here. That's a clip.
Yeah. Of course, I would never say that.
Why would you not say that?
Because I know he has a perspective.
His perspective's wrong as shit.
His perspective's just pro-business.
And it's gross.
Which, we're pro-people, which seems pretty obviously more
We're
righteous.
pro-America on this show, baby. We're pro-US of A.
Yeah, he's pro-GDP. We're pro-American citizens.
Yeah. He goes to Trump rallies and he goes, GDP.
Yeah,
GDP.
literally. Yeah, that's most of CNBC.
As most CNBC does. Yeah. So now there is another perspective to this, that this is a little bit of I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I just did a lot of pro-union stuff.
This is the conversation I'm really interested in.
And this is a conversation that we have to have. Are non-union electric vehicle car companies going to get an advantage because of this strike? This is a hard question. And as somebody who is pro-UAW and pro-union to his core, I'm not afraid to have this conversation because it's important to talk about.
Good.
Okay? So on Friday, newspapers have reported in Tokyo that Toyota will be speeding up its electric vehicle production, both for Toyota and Lexus brands, to reach an annual output of more than 600,000 vehicles in 2025. Tesla is boosting up their production too. During this time of this strike, electric vehicle expansion in Ford, GM, and Stellantis is not expanding because of the strike. Well, okay, what's the big deal? Tesla's expanding, Toyota, Lexus, they're expanding. Who cares? The workers in these companies, they aren't union. They get paid a hell of a lot less than Ford, GM, and Stellantis guys.
Yeah, and something that's been in the news a bunch recently are the price cuts that Tesla keeps making to its EVs.
Tesla keeps making their cars cheaper and cheaper. And it comes at the cost of workers, right? I mean, it comes at the fact that the workers at Tesla don't have a good pension program. They have okay health insurance. They get paid significantly less, 20% less, I think, in most cases.
Less job security.
Less job security for sure. So it has costs. But Tesla itself is doing well. And Tesla has done a fantastic job of keeping unions out of its company. A fantastic job. Tesla has pushed U.S. appeal courts to uphold bans that Tesla put on workers. Why did Tesla ban these workers? Because they wore pro-union shirts in their buildings. That's all it took for them to fire them. Now, you're allowed to do that as an employer at the moment. You're allowed to do that, I guess, because this country sucks. But that's how anti-union they are. Tesla has allegedly, it's not allegedly, because they've been found guilty. Tesla has been found guilty of firing an employee because he was trying to form a union. And so now we're in a difficult spot where are these union companies going to get outcompeted by these non-union companies? How do you feel about this?
I think they are. And I'm really concerned about it. I can't help, of course, but compare this to the writer's strike and the actor's strike. And there's this really clear difference that there isn't a group of television and movie writers that are non-unionized and just sitting on the sidelines like that these companies can hire up, right? All of them are collectivized in this union. So the entire workforce is taken away from the industry when they go on strike. Because the automobile industry doesn't have that, I think Tesla really is granted this enormous advantage. And Tesla already has a massive market share in the EV. I think it's got like a 60% EV market share in the US at least. So when you're dealing with that, It's already got this huge advantage, and it can push its prices down more because it doesn't unionize employees. And honestly, part of why it can bring these employees in without offering them the benefits of a union, like higher pay, is because there is a draw to the brand. And as much as some liberals might hate to say it, like, there's a draw to the charisma of Musk.
Unfortunately, there is.
So as someone who, as we were talking about this before the show, as someone who is super into getting these problems solved, someone who knows that getting more electric vehicles on the road is one of the most important things for us to do in our battle against climate change, I can see why why Musk is pushing this hard to not have unions in his company, because every extra dollar he does have to pay these people to produce the cars does mean fewer dollars can go to actually producing more electric vehicles, right? Because literally there isn't enough production capacity right now to get them onto the road in the numbers that we need to in order to combat climate change. Of course, I haven't gone deep enough to know, is Tesla doing a lot of share buybacks?
Yes.
How much is it paying is it overpaying its executives? I'm sure they can siphon more money out of that. But at a theoretical level, I do understand paying these workers less and not giving them the right to unionize so that we can ramp up production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that it's a hard call. I think there's a better solution to all this. I agree that these car companies need to be using as much capital as they can to get more money into the electric vehicle market and the production of it, okay? But I think the way to do that is through subsidies done like they were in the Inflation Reduction Act. Mm-hmm. And those Inflation Reduction Act subsidies that are consumer-driven are excellent examples of that, where the cost of having a better paid workforce might increase the cost of the car $1,000 each. But if the consumer gets a $1,400 tax credit for buying that said car, it makes it easier and easier for consumers to buy the car, helping the company in the long run, right?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I do agree that tax incentives for consumers should be greater for union-made cars. My only question is,
well, not just union made. So that was incentives for all electric cars, period.
Okay.
That's all electric cars, period.
Okay.
I think one of the failures of the Inflation Reduction Act that the United Auto Workers agrees with was a failure of the Inflation Reduction Act was not limiting in IRA funding to corporate IRA funding, not limiting that to union only places. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that IRA green energy money is going to places that don't have strong union protections. They're in right to work states.
Yes.
But you know what's not in right to work states? Some of Tesla's largest manufacturing facilities. Tesla's largest manufacturing facilities in Fremont, California. It produces the Model S, Model 3, Model X, and Model Y. 22,000 people work there. United Auto Workers, you got to step up and you got to unionize these guys. Okay. That's the only way this problem gets solved. End of story. That's it. That's the only way this gets solved, is going at the source. And there are places in California, there are places in New York. There is one in Austin, Texas that will be a bitch to unionize. Mm-hmm. But if you can get it in Fremont, California, and you can get it in Buffalo, this National Labor Relations Board will have your back, and they will not let Musk screw you over. True. Right? If they tried to do this under a Republican administration, under a Trump administration, with Trump-appointed leaders to the National Labor Relations Board, they wouldn't have a shot in hell to unionize Tesla. Mm-hmm. But now, in this environment, when you have the President of the United States going to United Auto Workers picket line, the first time in United States history that a sitting president made the decision to join union workers on a picket line. It's the first time ever a sitting president has done this. This is the best environment for unions to pick up the pace. And the unions have had a long period of being looked down upon by the public, of being scapegoated by politicians, but that time is over. Unions have a hell of a high approval rating, hovering above 65% among the public. We're seeing the gains that they're able to make. And when United Auto Workers wins this against GM and Ford and Stellantis, which I know they will, it will inspire all the people in Fremont, California who work in that Tesla plant to get a union too. That's what I think. But
I think you're right. I just do think, I think the cost is going to be borne by someone.
yes.
Is the thing, right? So government incentives are great, but we always espouse how much we love them. But even then, it's a question of how much, right? And already adoption of the IRA incentives, it was estimated at first to cost like $350 billion. Those estimates have skyrocketed above 1.3 trillion over the next 10 years because analysts think that the incentives are going to be used so much more than they initially projected.
Yeah, I mean, the demand for this capital is there.
Yes.
And they're going to take it.
Well, so it's tough, right? Like we also don't love deficit spending. So the money has to come from somewhere. We're in such a car heavy country and environment, right? That we need to get these EV prices driven down enough that buyers on the low end can afford them.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, and this is going to happen as EVs are in the market for longer, and so used EVs become more of a market because those prices are going to be driven down. But I feel like it's still going to take a while until used EVs or EVs in general are down to a price point that's really comparable with gas-powered cars.
Yeah,
and we need to get it down there because there are still so many people who are at that lower price point who need cars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a balance that's just really I don't know. I hate landing on like I don't know.
I don't know. Well, look, the end of the day is this. We need to have a just transition with climate change. It needs to be a just transition. It is not an okay solution to sell our souls to the corporate giants to solve climate change. That's not cool. I know you'll be like, whatever gets the job done, and I understand that mindset. But what do you think? Do you have that mindset?
Okay. Well, let's say this. It's easy to sit here and talk.
Right.
Let's say we could sell our souls to the corporate giants and the ice sheets didn't collapse.
Okay.
And sea level rise was contained to 1 foot or 1.5 feet instead of 2 meters at 6 feet.
Okay. But I think this is a false dichotomy. You know why?
Why?
Because we have sold our souls to the corporations for the last 40 years and they caused the ice sheets to collapse.
Okay. Fair. I'm trying to give you a hypothetical because the point still stands that we are talking about the difference between allowing the corporate giants to treat their workers worse in an effort to prevent moving faster towards the scenario.
Okay, so let's take for a given that corporations are going to go towards a climate friendly business environment.
Yeah, for EV companies.
For EV companies, right? Specifically for EV companies.
Yeah. You talked about last week.
I won't do it.
This man cited 216 million people will be driven out of their homes if sea level rise hits 2 meters. 216 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like 3% of all people on Earth.
Yeah. Is that true?
That was quick math.
That's true.
But I think so.
I think you're right.
About that.
Yeah. I'm going to go no.
Really?
I'm really going to go no.
I mean, of course, the answer isn't that much of a dichotomy, but right. I mean, it might be because tipping points are kind of how the climate system is set up. So I think, like, I hear you saying no, but you're really talking about like an EV manufacturing worker making $20 an hour versus $40 an hour versus like tens or hundreds of thousands of people dying in climate-related disasters.
Okay, but is that really what we're talking about, though? Is it really?
It could be. Right. It could be.
It depends on the differential here, okay? Yeah. Like I bet this, okay? If I were to say, okay, we all get enslaved to build EV cars.
Yep.
You would say it's worth it for the ice sheets to melt, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Well, that's why it's really hard for me to take a stance.
Yes.
Like, that's why I can't say we need a just transition.
Yeah.
Because we don't know when we're going, like how fast we need to build these cars in order to not have the ice sheets collapse.
This is the truth. This is what I think. I don't think that this has a meaningful effect on the production pace of EV cars.
Okay.
I don't think it does.
Okay.
I think it's greed. That's what I think. I think this is all about profit seeking. I think this is all about profits being increased. I don't think it has anything to do with the speed of EV adoption by the companies.
I think that's fair.
Right?
I don't know what the evidence is, although like I'm sure Elon Musk could make a lot less money. Although, like for Musk, right, all of his wealth is tied up in stocks.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think he's like hoarding a bunch of cash that he
he's
could be
not.
giving to his workers.
No.
He could be giving them more stock options, maybe, but
we're talking about but we're looking at when we look at Ford, Stellantis, GM, and the $14 billion of stock buybacks they did last year.
Yep.
That's money that they could have gone to EVs.
yes.
But it's not. It went to stock buybacks. So why am I going to be convinced that these companies will use that capital appropriately if we don't pay their workers more?
It's a very, very good point. I concede.
Right? I don't. That's what it is. And good talk, dude. That was awesome.
That was great.
That was fucking awesome.
Yeah. And those are the conversations I love having on here. They're really hard conversations because we are at these tipping points.
We are at the tipping points.
Yeah.
And listen, we're going to go into a deep dive of climate change for the third week in a row. And holy shit, guys, this is the best one I think we did. Probably.
I'm so pumped.
And it's nuts.
Yeah.